Dear friends, there is an interesting story about a guy who died and was being given a tour in heaven by Saint Peter. As they were walking, he saw one of his friends drive by in a Mercedes Benz. He said, "Boy, this is great." So Peter told him, "Oh yes, your friend was really generous when he was on earth, and we had a lot to work with his good life. Your transportation here depends on your generosity down on earth." Then Peter gave him the keys to his new Honda scooter. The man said, "Wait a minute, my friend gets a Mercedes and I get a scooter?" "That's right," Peter said. "That's all we had to work with your life." So the man drove off disgruntled. A week later, Peter saw him with all smiles, and then he said, "Hey, you are feeling better now?" The guy said, "Yeah, ever since I saw my pastor driving around on a skateboard," he said. We always do not get what we deserve. In today's gospel, we see that Jesus is telling us a very important issue about the workers. If Jesus were telling the same parable in our time, there would be most likely demonstrations in the streets from every union, and workers would be protesting in front of Jesus' hotel. Today's parable is not, however, intended to give us a moral guidance for legal justification of capitalism or labor negotiations. Rather, Jesus is asking us to avoid the common human issues of jealousy and envy. Jesus used many parables in his teachings, stories taken from their everyday lives to bring about a spiritual truth. The spiritual truth that the Lord wants to teach the Jewish people, and especially the Pharisees, is that the life of eternal happiness is a gift from God and out of God's generosity to us. It cannot be earned by anyone independently. The fact that the Jews were a chosen race was no guarantee that their future reward was assured. The fact that other people, being Gentiles and pagans, was not an impediment to enter into God's kingdom, provided they turned to God and followed Jesus faithfully. Now, to appreciate the Lord's parable in today's gospel, we must remember that the laborers were not a group of lazy people, but they needed a job. In Jesus' time, if a man didn't work for a day, his family would go hungry the next day. A man who found work early in the morning was always happy. So did his family rejoice. It is interesting to note that the early workers, if they had not found out that the latecomers were paid the same wage, they would have gone home happily. But once they knew that everyone was paid the same wage, they were angry and envious. Whereas the landowner was compassionate, and so he gave them what the laborers needed. Not that they earned a day's wage, but they needed a day's wage to continue to live for another day. When it comes to God's gifts, none of us has earned our blessings. There is always a generous gift from God that He gives to us freely without our merit. To summarize the parable, one scholar said, the world asks, how much did the landowner give? Whereas Jesus invites us to ask a better question, why did the landowner give as he did? There is an important lesson in this parable about God's justice and fairness. When seen from our worldly perspective, it looks like God is unfair or unjust. We know life is not always fair. Jesus himself was not treated fairly. Hence, we are called to live by the divine perspective. And if we live by that, everything will be fair at the end of our life. Now, one might ask, why do many people become happy or sad depending whether they are better off or worse off than their neighbors? We often resent the good fortunes of other people because we are jealous of them. Not all the time, but at times we become envious. What makes us jealous or envious? One reason may be we think that they have more money than we do. They are better looking than we are, or they are more talented or gifted than we are. Unfortunately, when we do this, we make the big mistake of judging them according to the worldly standards or the secular standards and values, not by God's. If we judge them by God's standards, we might discover that we all are just important as they are in God's eyes. In God's plan, our talents may be more useful or valuable than those the world considers to be powerful and wiser. Therefore, the Lord is inviting us to stop comparing ourselves with others. Instead, He is inviting us to accept ourselves as we are, with our talents, our gifts, and with our shortcomings, being the children of God. The Lord doesn't compare us with each other. Each one of us has a unique calling, unique set of talents, unique set of opportunities, unique set of even challenges in our life. The problems and opportunities may be the same as that of others, but the combination can be always unique. The mix of burdens, the graces, and the blessings from God are never exactly same or identical to others. Today, what the Lord is asking of us is that we serve Him with whatever we have and best as we can. I like to close with a short quote from Mother Teresa, who was a very humble servant of God, who took care of the sick and the dying, and never complained about her predicament in life. She said, "Not all of us can do great things, but we all can do small things with the great love." Let me repeat. Not all of us can do great things, but we can all do small things with the great love.